Blog Talk Radio.
Down to sleep, lay me down. I pray my soul is mine to keep. My soul can never step outside this bed, never into all the evil. Now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
He's here.
The calling hours.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
Another episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Horror Society Radio. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is I, your head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones of HorrorSociety.com and Living Dead magazine. Tonight, in episode 57, we have none other than the legendary, the Godfather of Gore, Herschell Gordon Lewis, and producer James Saito. We're going to have them on this evening to talk about their brand new film, Bloodmania. And while we have him here, we're going to ask the Godfather about his legendary career as a director, producer, and an actor. And we're going to ask him about a lot of his films that really were the cement, the building block for what is known as the gore genre today. Films that include 1963's Blood Feast, 1964's 2000 Maniacs, 1967's A Taste of Blood, 1970's The Wizard of Gore, 1972's The Gore Gore Girls, 2002's Blood Feast 2, All You Can Eat, and of course, 2015's upcoming Bloodmania. We're also going to have James Saito on, and James was one of the one of the producers, one of the men that was behind the whole project, and he was very instrumental in helping me to get Mr. Lewis onto the show. So we're going to ask him, he likes to disclaim it, even though he has acting and producing and writing on his resume. He says that playing a zombie extra does not constitute an acting role. I disagree with him. If you show up on screen or in the credits, that's acting. You were there doing what you were supposed to do. So when James is on, we will certainly ask him about that. We'll ask him, what his view was with working with such a legendary icon such as Herschell Gordon Lewis as well. In our Scream Factory Blu-ray release DVD spotlights this evening, in Digital Dismemberment, we're going to be covering Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. And we're also going to be reviewing The Raven from the Vincent Price Collection II. We're going to have a couple of bands in our Metal Blade Spotlight, and I'm doing something a little bit different this evening. I've been trying to move out into some other labels just a little bit to bring in metal from all over the place, and I got something really good tonight. I've got the guys from Wormreich, and the first song that we are going to hear this evening is going to be from Wormreich, from the CD Worm Cult Revelations. The name of the song is Devotion's Final War. About that. That CD was released last April on Moribund Records. We're going to hear a little bit more from Wormreich later on in the evening. But before we do that, it's time to get into some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our first digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we're going to be covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of the Vincent Price Collection II, in particular, the film The Raven. You know, it's been a long time since I've had an opportunity to see that and some of the other films in that collection. Just to give you a little bit of an overview, this is the Vincent Price Collection II. This included House on Haunted Hill, The Last Man on Earth, Comedy of Terrors, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, The Return of the Fly, of course The Raven, and The Tomb of Ligeia, which I covered a couple weeks back, and I've also actually covered Dr. Phibes Rises Again. You know, I really enjoyed the film myself. Once again, Scream Factory did a fantastic job with the transfer and the sound. You know, I thought the film came across, the sound came across very well. I thought the picture quality was very nice. for those of you that are not familiar with the film and you're thinking, okay, The Raven was a poem. How did they turn it into a film? What they did was, they kind of expanded on it. It was made more into a comedy than it actually was anything else. It had an absolutely stunning cast when you look about it. You have Vincent Price, of course. You got Peter Lorre in it, and then of course you've got Boris Karloff. I mean, you talk about having a triple header of legends. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. So the story certainly goes much beyond the poem, and to kind of give you an idea, Dr. Aramis Craven, who's played by Vincent Price, thinks that his wife, Lenore, has been dead for over 2 years, and his daughter is still there with him, and, she kind of experiences everything that he goes through. Well, one night, he magically draws kind of like a raven in a study, and later on a raven appears in the room. They start talking to one another, and they make this potion that turns him back into a human, and his name is Dr. Bedloe, and he's played by Peter Lorre. And he tells Craven, that he was turned into a crow by the evil Dr. Scarabus, and of course that's Boris Karloff. And they were dueling. Bedloe wants to go back, and he tells Craven that he sees the ghost of his wife there in a painting. So they all trek off to the house, and there's a little bit of possession where one of Craven's land, I don't know what you want to call them, workers attacks them, and then he also does the same thing to Bedloe's son Rexford, who is actually played by Jack Nicholson in the film. So that's pretty sweet. So as the film goes on, Scarabus is trying to play off everything, and he and Bedloe duel again, and Bedloe is apparently killed. A mistake trying to do his own trick to outduel Scarabus. Well, as we find out, there's a lot more that's going on to the story, and in the end, Craven and Scarabus duel. And it turns out that Lenore is not dead. She is left and has made Craven think that she was dead. Excuse me. So there's a lot of backstabbing that goes on in the film. Special features are absolutely great. There's the introduction and parting words by Vincent Price, again, through the public television series, so it has that. Richard Matheson's storyteller, The Raven, talks about how he transforms it from the poem into the script. There's a piece with Roger Corman called Corman's Comedy of Poe, and they talk about how they kind of made the film as a lot more of a comedy than it is horror, even though there are those horrific elements. There's a really nice promotional record that they recreated and put on so that you can listen to it with pictures, and it's absolutely stunning. And, of course, you have the theatrical trailers in the still gallery. Not the bloodiest, not the scariest in the collection, but I would give the film a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The box set, of course, is a 10 out of 10. We've been over this a couple times, and we will be reviewing more titles from that box set soon. So head on over to ScreamAndShoutFactory.com and pick up your copy of the Vincent Price Collection II. You should also be able to get it on Amazon.com and some of your big box brick-and-mortar locations. Coming up in about 8 minutes, we are going to have our feature interview with none other than the Godfather of Gore, Herschell Gordon Lewis, and producer James Saito. Before that, we're going to get into our next double shot of music. We're going to start this one off with Algernon, Elements of the Infinite. The song is the Phytogenesis Stretch. The CD was The Deathless. The song was The Blackest Reaches. Before that was Algernon from the CD's Elements of the Infinite. The name of the song was The Phylogenesis Stretch. But now, now's the time for why everyone is here. It's time to bring on a legendary man in our industry, none other than the Godfather of Gore, Herschell Gordon Lewis, and producer James Saito. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having us.
You know, I just want to say first and foremost, thank you for allowing me to have you on the show. I appreciate everything, that you've done with us on Horror Society this week leading up to it. I just wanted to say, it really was an honor to go back and look at a lot of Mr. Lewis's films, and I remember a lot of them fondly, and I hope that, some people that are listening tonight, whether you're old fans or you're new fans, this is a gentleman that you really need to go back and you need to watch his work because he is the man that created the gore genre. Thank you for being on, guys. Really.
Herschell, are you there with us?
Oh, Herschell may have dropped. I don't know what happened. That's okay. Well, while we wait for Herschell, let me ask you, how did you first get involved working with him?
Well, I was involved with a horror convention here in Canada, and we had been contacted by somebody who wanted to make a Herschell Gordon Lewis film about possibly having Herschell as a guest. And I recall receiving that email on my phone, and my hand started to shake immediately. I've been a Herschell Gordon Lewis fan since I was about 10 years old. So I was quick to respond, and I began speaking with Herschell on a personal basis, and we struck up not only a friendship but a desire to make a film together. And it was like a boyhood dream for me come true.
Now, and that's kind of how it was when, I got in contact with you guys and we were able to set this up. I just turned 39 the other day, so, like I said, I grew up catching a lot of these films, when they got their VHS release and, things like that, seeing some of them theatrically where I could. Of course, all of Herschell's earlier stuff was before I was born, so being able to catch that during the VHS boom was nice. But, it's...
Yeah.
Like when you met him for the first time, it's kind of hard because I always ask people this, and I experienced it, with Herschell being on, when you first meet him and you see him and you think back over his work and everything that he's done and the impact and the historical reference of everything that he's done, was that a daunting task for you as a producer when you guys were getting ready to do Bloodmania?
Well, I don't think it was so much daunting, and I'm not easily intimidated, in that way with celebrity, but I felt very honored, and I knew that, the last thing that I could do would be to screw up Mr. Lewis's legacy. So I feel that responsibility very heavily upon my shoulders, and I want him, and I firmly believe now that we're in post-production and that we did it right. And I think it's a film that Herschell can be very proud of, and I think it's going to contribute to his the legend that is Herschell Gordon Lewis.
Now, when you first approached him about doing this, how did you first get involved with Diabolique Films?
Well, Greg Petaludis and I, again through marketing, talked over the phone on several occasions, and we get along very well. He's a very nice man, and he certainly knows what there is to know about marketing in general. So we got along for that reason alone. So when we had talked about Herschell and I doing a film together, and it just turned out that Diabolique wanted to start a film division of their own. So we chatted about the possibility of sitting down and creating Diabolique Films, and we said, okay, that works out well for everybody involved. My only reticence and my only conditions were that we shoot all of Diabolique's films in Canada, specifically Calgary, Alberta, where I'm from. We have a very strong and growing film industry here in Calgary, and that was it didn't prove to be a problem for Greg, so we formed the company. And I have my own company, HGB Entertainment Limited, and that's actually in charge of day-to-day production and development. So, yeah, it's been a very happy working relationship. And if you consider Mr. Lewis as a day job, which and I don't know, if a lot of listeners would know this, but Mr. Lewis himself is one of only 3 men who've ever been inducted into the American Marketing Hall of Fame.
That's incredible when you think about it.
Yes, he's written over 30 books on marketing. So between Greg, myself, and him, we have over a century of marketing experience. So we feel very good about Mm-hmm.
Because having worked on a few films myself, I understand how things are broken down between the production end, the directing end, the marketing end, and all of that. And you seem to have a firm grasp on the horror and the directing end. Of course, Herschell does from all of his years and everything that he did. But kind of talk about going into it knowing that any kind of film that you decide you want to put out, you basically have, like you said, only one of three men to be inducted into the American Marketing Hall of Fame. Kind of talk about how does that ease a little bit on the production, knowing that you're going to get all the coverage you need.
Well, I don't think it makes anything any easier from that, from that respect, because we set out to make a film that was going to be crowd pleasing to horror fans, and not just fans of a subgenre like splatter. We want to make an entertaining film overall. From day one, Herschell's motto has been, let's make a film that people say to their buddies, "You've got to see this. You've got to see this." And so it almost makes the job more daunting in a way, because every facet has to be constructed in such a way that you're coming out with a quality product. And I mean that right. From practical effects to the music, everything, every little critical aspect has to be, up to our standard and the bar that we've set for ourselves. So in that respect, it is more daunting.
Remember,
I think Herschell is now joining us.
Herschell,
is that you?
Yes. I would add to what he just said, we are competing against product in which budget overrides imagination. And that's how we succeed in this industry, by competing on that level. If you look at some of the movies around, such as Transformer, it's all what they call CGI, computer-generated images. And we don't do that at all. The audience is getting wise to this kind of thing. Our stuff is real. Well, I don't know how many phone calls I've had over the years saying, did you really tear that guy's arm off? That is, in a sense, a compliment to the kind of movie we make. On the other hand, in addition to that, we pipe in a sense of humor, which I think is becoming increasingly valuable as the competition sits there bewildered, saying, what effect shall we try next?
No, I agree with you. As someone who started in the industry, low-budget special effects, I'm right there with you. I'm not a fan of CGI, and films like yours that certainly help to inspire me to do what I do. It's still fun to go back and watch everything. But
I'll tell you what else. You hit a nerve with that one, because here we have movies that cost zilch to make, with unknown actors, primitive effects, and here we are all these years later, and the early movies are still showing. And you compare that against some of the contemporary products, in which a movie will open maybe in hundreds of theaters at the same day. 3 weeks later, it's forgotten, and they can't sell any DVDs of it. The difference is simply giving the audience something they regard as entertaining.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. Back, you had directed a few projects before. Let me make sure I have all my facts straight here. You had started, according to IMDb, you started directing professionally 1961. You had done a couple of other style films before Blood Feast, 1963.
Yes.
When you did Blood Feast, what I wanted to ask
you was, I didn't mean to. Repeat.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry. But what I wanted to ask was, what switch did you flip? What was it at that period of time, 1963? What made Blood Feast come to your head? What made it such a viable thing for audiences. Everything that you guys did, your producer handing out barf bags, getting an injunction against the film. Really, what was it that made you think now was the time?
You've struck a nerve with that question. What happened was this. I reached the point at which I felt whatever I would try to do, because I had a very strange reputation in the movie industry, which was, without spending any money on cast, effects, or whatever, we were putting out movies that people were playing. At that time, it was all theatrical. And there was a group of theaters who would play whatever I excreted. So others said, how long has this been going on? And they had what I didn't have, 3 elements. One is budget. Second, semi-name actors to give a certain cachet to it. And third, often implicit automatic distribution at a time when many of the major studios owned their own theaters. So I felt at that point, what kind of motion picture might I make that the major film companies either, 1, cannot make, or 2, simply won't do, but some theaters somewhere will play. And one night, Jim cut me off here if I'm rambling. One night I was watching a late movie. I think it had the actor Edward G. Robinson in it. And here was a scene in which the police caught up with him and pumped him full of bullet holes. And he died very peacefully with a little splotch on his shirt. And I said, wait a minute. That's not the way that's supposed to be. And that's what gave me the genesis, really, of what became Blood Feast. Well, the next thing that in line, and all these things are a matter, really, of serendipity. You find what you're not looking for. We were shooting all our stuff in Miami. We were staying at a little motel on the beach called the Suez, S-U-E-Z. And that was because it was cheap. Outside the Suez motel was a sphinx. Now, in Egypt, they have a sphinx that's about 200 feet high. At the Suez, they had a sphinx that was about 8 feet high. But you shoot against the sun, one sphinx is as good as another. And that's what gave me the wild idea of an Egyptian overtone to this thing. The next thing was what was the most Egyptian name I could think of? I came up with Fuad Ramses, and everybody was laughing. But you see, we've since made 2 other movies using Fuad Ramses the second and third. I made one. I shouldn't say we. I made one, and somebody else made one.
Correct.
And someone often will ask me, who wrote the script for Blood Feast? And my answer is, what's that? Oftentimes we were winging it. We would shoot first and script it later. And that was because as we did this, I became less and less confident in what would come out of the other end. And I was cutting this movie in my little cutting room in Chicago. And we had almost nothing to cut out because we used every inch of film we bought. There were 2 words you never heard on my set. Take 2. So cutting this thing, and people were looking at it full of grease pencil marks and whatever, saying, is this a medical film? And I said, oh gosh, who will ever show this movie? Which shows how cloudy the crystal ball can be. Because we opened Blood Feast in Peoria, figuring if we die in Peoria, who will know? We crocked them in Peoria. And what happened there was I touched off something in the warped and twisted brains of most of the people who go to a theater expecting to see something and come out of there saying, well, it was all right, but never having been blasted the way this movie did. And they didn't care that there was a ragged pan between 2 shots. They didn't care that the dialogue was stilted. They said, did you see that scene in which? And we were home free. As you're aware, the motion picture industry is very incestuous. Today, on the Sunday evening news, they'll tell you which movies opened that weekend, which ones are going to be successes, which ones are going to bomb. And it was more like that in previous times when there wasn't a multiplicity of media. Because one of the problems we face today is they're coming into our territory again. We can't really open a movie just on DVD and sit back confident, because a lot of major company product comes out opening on DVD without ever seeing a theater. So the competition is still there, and our determination, Jim's and mine, are to stay one step ahead, and I think we've done it with this movie. And I do apologize for hogging so much time.
No, it's quite all right. I think James has dropped off to let me ask you questions, and James, please call back if you would like to. I'm going to ask you just one more general question, and then I'm going to ask you about Bloodmania, because that's the primary reason I had you on. I wanted to ask you a few small things, but
sure, go ahead.
When you look back at it all, like I said, Blood Feast, I started there because that was the film that started it, and all week long I've been highlighting your films. I highlighted 2000 Maniacs, I highlighted A Taste of Blood, The Wizard of Gore, The Gruesome Twosome, The Gore Gore Girls, just to give people an idea. And you really did. You ushered in the subgenre of the gore film. Did you have any idea, when you started all of this, that it would become what it has today? And now there are subgenres of the gore genre.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about historically what you started?
No, I'm a walking example. If you live long enough, you become legitimate. I could not believe, even when Blood Feast was doing the business it was, that it could continue the way it did. And it has continued over the last holiday weekend, or that is Halloween. Blood Feast showed all over the place. Here's an ancient movie with horrible and primitive effects. It's still showing. So I didn't know that I was starting all that. I figured I was just going to make a movie nobody else was making. Once I saw the results that Blood Feast was bringing in, I literally rushed to the camera, and I said to my partner at the time, Dave Friedman, I said, what if we made a decent one? And that's where 2000 Maniacs came from, because some of the theaters that played our product would screen it before they would open it or agree to show it. And I was dealing with a different kind of criticism there. They didn't care that the people would come to see it. They didn't like it. And so we missed out on some play dates despite the colossal business it was doing. 2000 Maniacs, I felt, would lift the quality just a notch without damaging what appeared to be, let's go make a movie, whatever we can shoot, let's do it so we can scare the hell out of people. And that also worked. But it's all really a matter of trying to outguess people who don't know you.
Now, James,
I apologize, guys. For some reason I lost the connection. I'm on my cellular, so I'm back.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. We've just laid the foundation. We're getting ready to start talking about Bloodmania, and kind of leading into that, James. You talked about how you met Herschell. How you two have become friends and everything, and we briefly touched on the idea of working on a film. Again, from the producer's eye, because I've been in that position as well. How was it when you were standing back and you watched Herschell do what he does? What's it like watching one of the masters paint a masterpiece?
Well, that would be probably the most enjoyable aspect of this whole venture. Having said what you just did about being a producer yourself, you understand the frustrations of the position on a normal day-to-day basis.
Sure.
The magic for me was just standing back and watching. As I say, as a boy, I was fascinated by Herschell's films, and he's probably the primary reason why I'm the horror fan that I am today. So to watch him in action, it was like it was surreal. The first couple of days, I just stood around. Go ahead,
Jim. You do yourself too little honor. I have never had as good a time as I had making Herschell Gordon Lewis's Bloodmania. In fact, I'll tell whoever's listening in, I really felt that shooting this thing in Canada was an education for me. These people are, first of all, the actors are good. I'm not used to that. The technicians are quick and capable. I'm not used to that either. So if anybody out there wants to be executive producer on a movie, Jim and I think I speak for you too, Jim. We are ready to go.
Yes, well, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that because, Jim, while I was looking over your IMDb page and I was, reading a little bit more about you, you state that you feel it's important to support the growing film industry there. And I wanted to ask you, like Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm right in the middle of the state, but down in Wilmington, they have UNCW, they have the Dino De Laurentiis studio down there. So there's a lot of filming that's done in the state of North Carolina. So there's always work out there. But kind of talk about what the film scene is like out there in Calgary.
Before you do,
well, it's growing and it's thriving. There's a reason why AMC shoots Hell on Wheels here, why Fargo is shot here, why Christopher Nolan shot Interstellar here. It's because Alberta can stand in for anywhere. We do provide good incentives to filmmakers here as a province.
More than that, Jim, you provide talent.
Yes, and there is a lot of talent.
Well, independent filmmakers are not used to that kind of thing. They are used to what they call grunts, people who show up and pull cables around. And it's an exhilarating experience, really, especially for someone who hasn't had that background before, to see the way it's possible to, first of all, make the budget stretch considerably more than it normally would. That's a factor in the movie we just made. We made a better movie, I think, than I had expected us to do. So I'm your fan at this point.
Michael, have you seen... Oh, sorry, Michael. I was just going to ask you,
No, please.
Have you seen Fargo at all, or have you seen Hell on Wheels, some of the special effects?
No, it's unfortunately, and being on the journalistic end of it, a lot of times, I get so many movies and things that I have to watch that I very rarely get to watch outside. If it's not horror related, I have a hard time scheduling it in, and it's not an offense to any of that product. But I will definitely look into it tonight after we get off of the show. I definitely want to check it out.
The reason that I mention that is because the gentleman who does the special effects, the makeup effects, and is the man who does our gore effects. David Traynor is his name. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Dave and his amazing practical effects on this movie. He was recently nominated for Best Effects for Fargo, and there's a brilliant scene in one of the Fargo episodes where Billy Bob Thornton has had his leg caught in a bear trap, and you get to see him reset the bone in his leg on his own, and that's all Dave Traynor. He's a fantastic effects man. And again, he worked on things like Blade 2, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I'm sure that's one you've seen. He did the effects on that one. Yeah, and he was dying to work with Herschell. Absolutely.
Well, if I'd known he was dying, I would have killed him off.
Now, Herschell, from your perspective, you talked about, how much talent there is there. What else did you see as a filmmaker that you really liked about the Calgary area?
Well, first of all, I could give you really a recitation on that point on a competitive level. First of all, you have people who are enthusiastic about the industry. Suppose you said, I'm not going to shoot in Calgary, I'm going to shoot in Los Angeles. You would find an entirely different attitude in which people, for example, on the crew, have great contempt for anybody who is not a member of the IA. That IA is IATSE, International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. That's the union. Second, you would have union problems, which we didn't have. Third, you would find actors who have agents who positively will get in the way of using somebody that you want to use. And all these elements together, you go to Calgary and you're welcomed. But it's more than that. You're welcomed by people who know what they're doing. It really is a fine experience for anyone who is used to the average reaction out on the street there with people who have just become sour. They just do this to collect a check. It's different up there. And I would go back in a moment as soon as the weather clears.
I feel you on that. I would say it's a lot like that here in North Carolina too. The only sad thing is that our state Congress is fighting over tax breaks for filmmakers. So that's really the only thing that hurts us here. But I would love to come up to Calgary one time and just to get an idea for the scene. So maybe I'll look you up when I get up there, James, and you can show me around the town there.
Oh, I'd love to. You betcha. That'd be great.
Now,
so
we're really going to start.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank you at Horror Society too, as well, for allowing us to show our sneak preview.
Oh, no, we appreciate you letting us do it. It's gotten a ton of hits. I can't wait to see the numbers when we get off of the podcast tonight. But it all the posts I did, when I did the conception of Gore, when I highlighted all the films that Herschell's done, they got a lot of views. A lot of people were really liking them. So, I think people are looking forward to what Bloodmania is going to bring us. And this will be the last retro question because I really do want to go into Bloodmania for the rest of the interview. But, Herschell, at a time when you started, Gore, the way that you showed it and the way that you did it was really a new thing. And even by your words, nothing really wound up on the cutting room floor. And there are some graphic moments in your earlier films. And it wasn't until the Gore Gore Girls, I believe, that one of your films was given an X rating. Can you kind of talk about?
You know too much.
I do my research, and to me, I mean, it's an important thing.
One more touch of background. First of all, how do you cut somebody's arm off? Answer: now we have rubberized. But I don't know how much of this we are responsible for establishing. Nothing had been established. We had to use department store mannequins, which in today's marketplace would be laughable. But then, no one had ever done it, and we got away with it. Second, blood. I had made a movie called Living Venus in black and white. And Living Venus is about the rise and fall of a guy who runs a magazine on the order of Hugh Hefner. And there's a scene there where some girl's father smacks him in the mouth and little blood trickles out. And we had bought some stage blood. For Blood Feast, I looked at that stuff and I said, well, that's purple. That won't work in color. So off we went to a little cosmetics laboratory and compounded our own stage blood, which looked good enough. You could get a transfusion. You'd die, of course, but meanwhile you wouldn't know what caused it. And we used that stage blood for years and years, the same type. Now, of course, it's better than that because the original stage blood we put together would not wash out except under extreme conditions. We wound up realizing that we were going to cover some girl with that stuff, make that the last scene she's in, because to get it out would take a couple of days. And you see the history.
Yeah, blood's changed a little bit these days.
Beg pardon?
I said blood has changed a little bit these days, yeah.
Blood has changed a little bit, yes. The new stuff is such a pleasure to use. Of course, it's like any other evolvement. As you go along, you improve something, and something else comes up, and you improve that. And it's a lot easier than it was when we were trying to figure out how am I going to use an arm here. So when we come to a movie such as the Bloodmania movie. The effects that have come into that movie, I couldn't have dreamed of when we made Blood Feast or 2000 Maniacs or The Gruesome Twosome, or for that matter, the Gore Gore Girls. It's just improved that much. And now, you see, because we have so much realism in it now, we soften that so that anybody can absorb what we're doing. We soften it with humor, and that's the next step, in my opinion. Just as we established the whole genre of this kind of movie to start with, we're now going to establish the same kind of movie with humor. We started that way back with the Gore Gore Girls. And one thing we proved with that, it's really strange, it's a generation situation. With the Gore Gore Girls, anybody under age 40 thought it was a real hoot. Anybody over age 50 thought we should be strung up on a wire. That's very strange. But that, of course, has melded together in recent years because things like television and social media have pulled everybody together. But it's still that way, I think. The old folks don't understand what we're doing. They don't think they want to go back to the old shoot 'em up westerns and that kind of thing, in which the elements that we have in here are simply not present. But we have certainly made a nice dent in the movie industry. And
I would certainly agree. Now, with that being asked, of course, like I said, it was 72. You got your first X rating, and then for 30 years you didn't do any film work, and then you came back with Blood Feast 2. Mm-hmm. After that, you had there was one more after that.
The Uh-Oh Show.
Yes, the Uh-Oh Show.
The Uh-Oh Show, yeah.
I mean, of course, I know that you're very successful in marketing, in the Hall of Fame, and all of that. But just out of curiosity, why after 1972, when you stopped making films, do the MPAA and places like that really cracked down on it, and now it's a little bit looser? Are you guys looking for a particular rating for Bloodmania? Do you care what the rating is?
I think the MPAA is full of hot air.
Well, you and I are on the same page.
I had that one rating. We never even submitted our movies to be rated, except that in some cases when we were going for a one-piece distribution deal, the distributor demanded it. And invariably, if we got a horrible rating, which we would, we just released it unrated. And I quit doing it. But the reason I dropped out of this whole thing for so many years was I felt our time had come and gone. Because here were the major companies, as I said a little earlier in this conversation, making the same kind of movies we were, but they had elements we could never hope to compete with. But making movies, you know this too, it's like having malaria. You think you're cured, and it's lurking in your bloodstream. And somebody comes, hey, let's make a movie. You say, all right, put your deal together and call me. Now, I must have said that during that interim period at least 300 to 400 times. But sure enough, somebody put a deal together and called me. And that's where Blood Feast 2 came from. And I am thrilled to still be in the saddle after all these years.
Now, one of the other things, and I think it ties in really well with Bloodmania, because I have to admit that, Jim and Greg and everything, I always see stuff about Diabolique Films, Diabolique Magazine, anytime I'm on my Facebook. There's always something there, and I think that's a good thing, and it goes towards the marketing end. Since you have done so much in marketing, and marketing is such an important part of film, what are your thoughts on how the advent of social media has changed the face of marketing for not only things in general, but in particular film?
That's a tough question, and some of the people listening may not agree with my conclusion, because, yes, I'm out there even today writing advertising copy for marketers in a number of countries. I have yet, after, 7, 8 years, I have yet to see any case in which dealing, for example, with Facebook resulted in a profit beyond what you would get, or even equivalent to what you would get from going straight to email. So I come into this arena with a prejudice. But you go with whatever's available. And there's a benefit and a detriment to social media. The benefit is it's widespread. The detriment is people become your partner. I don't want a partner. I've got a partner. He's up there in Calgary. They use your medium to criticize you. And I don't think that is particularly a good way to play the game. We are specialists. Sure. And I don't care, really, if 75% of the populace says, what horrible junk this is. I wouldn't spend 10 cents to see that movie. But there's another 25%. And a wonderful thing about our movies, we don't waste any money at all, so that it becomes possible to give people entertainment and yet come out on the far end. I was noticing in the trade press, here's Disney, which is certainly the biggest company right now in the business. They sent out a news release, much to my surprise, saying that they were downgrading a movie called The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp, and they were planning to take a $200 million loss on that. I can tell you, and I think I speak for Jim too, if we take a $200 million loss on this movie, I will be very much surprised.
God, I hope not. That would be the end of cinema as I know it. Well, let's get into it. Tonight was the first night that any footage was available for anyone to view of Bloodmania, and again, thank you so much for letting Horror Society put that out there. I watched it. I got that great vibe from it. The minute I watched it, I said, "This is Herschell Gordon Lewis. This is what we're missing. This is what we need." The younger generation to see, and for the older generation to remember. And I know you don't want to give too much away, but James, let's start with you here. What really got Bloodmania rolling, and once you realized the scope of what it was, what were your primary concerns going into filmmaking?
Well, right off the bat, I mean, the rules of filmmaking apply to horror filmmaking. You have to have a damn good script. Mm-hmm. And we went through various script writers, various people who were wanting to help out on the production side of things, and you know what this industry is like.
Oh yeah.
There are charlatans, there are sycophants, there are any number of questionable types who want to attach themselves to you at any given time. So, of course, you have to go through all that. But what we ended up with, finally, was 4 scripts that we were very content with. Each is distinct of one another, except for there is a theme that does roll through them. Everything that happens in this film takes place in the fictional town of Louisville, and essentially, I mean, that was the most important thing. We had to have good scripts, excellent stories. We had to have Herschell's sense of gore, and because it's an anthology film, we wanted to have a twist, Twilight Zone-like ending to each one of them.
I like it. Is this the type of thing you see being culminating? What's that?
If you were to screen the entire movie, which will be very soon, I hope, a little bit of everything. Some of the episodes, we've got 4 episodes in there. Some are so tinged with humor that it's a different marketplace from some that absolutely do their best to avoid humor. And that's why there are 4 separate elements. And what we are counting on is if someone doesn't like one of them, they'll like the other 3. Or if someone doesn't like the other 3, they'll like that one. And whatever it might be, they're going to come back to see some more.
Now, is this something that both of you seeing is that could be an anthology series?
Definitely.
That's for Jim to answer.
Jim, the pressure's on you.
Oh, no, really. I can share this with you. My company, HGB Productions, we had initially planned that we were going to film a feature a year, and we were going to shoot a short film every 3 months. Now, that might be a little bit ambitious, because, well, it's proving to be. You know, if I have to oversee all of this, then I'm going to be a very busy man. I'm also, you know, there are other things on the plate as well, like a mini series and that sort of thing that are not horror related. So the plan is still, though, to shoot a short film every 3 months to comprise the next Herschell Gordon Lewis anthology film.
No, see, I like that
So
idea.
yes, there will be more. I can say that most assuredly.
Now, with this being an anthology-style series, of course, now, just so fans get this right, did Herschell direct every segment, or, you know, was there only one or two that he did? You know, who else's talents are we going to be seeing in this film, other than Mr. Trainer, the great special effects artist?
Okay, well, Herschell directed 2 of the segments, and a gentleman named Kevin Littlelight, a very fine scriptwriter and director, Canadian director. He directed the segment which you screened the preview of today, the sneak peek.
Yes.
And the 4th is directed by a young lady who we're going to be promoting during Women of Horror Month. Her name is Melanie Reinbold. Did a very, very wonderful job with her. She acted as Herschel's first AD on his 2 segments and directed this one. We had another director in mind, and it was actually Herschel who said that, you know, Melanie should be the one.
Melanie has the talent. And again, for people like me who are used to people, what do I do next? To have people like that as an assistant director, it's exhilarating. It gives me a hope for our whole industry. But I only directed 2 of these things, as Jim just told you. The others were directed by somebody else.
And Herschel did write one of the segments.
I wrote one of them, yeah.
I wrote one of them.
What is the ultimate goal? Are you guys looking to put it out there on the convention circuit? Are you trying to get some kind of theatrical release, self-distribution? There's so many different ways now. It's so much different than it was when you first started Herschel. What are your thoughts now on how you can get your film out to the public?
That was one reason I dropped out, because the network we had, which was a group of independent film distributors, each one was in an area. I think in fact Raleigh, North Carolina controlled one area. Jacksonville, Florida was one. Austin, Dallas, Texas. Albany, New York. New York City, Chicago, Des Moines. Each was a distribution center. That's gone now. And so in order to distribute the way we used to, you have to put the film in your suitcase and just go from place to place.
Right.
But now, as you point out, it is a different world, and that's up to Jim. I'm pleased to be on the periphery of that world.
Well, Jim, let's
obviously, our plan right now is we're looking to negotiate theatrical distribution, and there are a couple of the big boys who want to see a couple of the segments finished before they make any kind of commitment.
They should.
But that's an ongoing process. So,
just as a matter of business decisions, what they can do is make a deal with us, have a very playable picture at a fraction of what it would cost to have some movie with Johnny Depp. And another point I will make to you is, and you made the point to me, these movies have what they call legs. They last. Here is Blood Feast. Here is 2000 Maniacs. All these years later, they're not regarded as dead products. They're available. People use them. They still show in theaters on occasion. And so we have history on our side.
So obviously, Michael. Sorry, Michael.
Go ahead.
But that would be our goal.
Go ahead.
Obviously, we're going to be. There are a couple, and I won't. I'm not going to name names here, but Herschell and I will be flying to meet with various representatives in acquisitions for some of the major distributors. And we also have our own marketing plan in place. That we're, I mean, between Greg and Herschell and I, we have a few ideas that have never been done before by anyone, not the major studios, nobody. And we want to test them out. They virtually cost us nothing. But the possibility.
Hey, if you guys ever come to the Raleigh, North Carolina area, you let me know, and I'll do what I can to help you out. And I've got your Horror Society.
Well, we appreciate it.
You don't ever have to worry about that. If you're coming down my way, I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. Now, something that Herschell, kind of reiterated, I want to get both of your thoughts on that. Herschell, you had mentioned, the budgets and the names that they try to get into some of these films, and you talk about, that one film losing $200 million and things like that. Why is it, do you think, both of you, both from a production standpoint and from a director standpoint, a man who's been in the trenches, why is it Hollywood is so afraid to take $20 million and give 10 film directors $2 million to go make a low-budget film? Because Herschel's right. In this day and age, on video sales alone, on rentals alone, downloads alone, they'll make back their $2 million. But why are they not willing to take that chance? That's how gems like your films were made, Herschell. That's how gems like Evil Dead were made. Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. None of those films were multi-million-dollar films, but those are the films today that we all point back to as fans and go, that's a pillar of, that's an icon of the genre. That's an icon of the genre. And it's not these multi-million-dollar films.
It is a philosophical matter because we regard the product as being of primary importance. There, they regard either the name of the leading man or the leading woman or the name of the director or some secondary element to entertainment. That's not their factor. They deal in star name value. We don't have star names, including our own. And I agree with you. I've been sitting there for a lot of years saying, hey, guys, out there in La La Land, give me a call. I'll come there with a toothbrush in my hand.
And actually, the British actually did that. They handed out, I think, £50 million to 50 different filmmakers under the idea that, well, even if some are financial losers, we'll make our money back, and we'll promote the industry in Britain, and we will give somebody, 50 people their start. And it's never worked out badly for them.
You and I are in agreement on that point.
Well,
I feel to give 50 people $1 million each in the hope that some of them will succeed. That is not good business practice. Because yes, it will help somebody have a nice resume, but our intention here is to make money off the top immediately.
Well, yes, of course. But as to why Hollywood doesn't do it, I have no idea. Some things in life are just difficult to explain, like why you would pass the ball on the 1-yard line.
Oh, wow, here we go.
During the Super Bowl.
Stuff right here at the end, huh?
You'll never live that
way.
But some things aren't meant to be known. And but no, I mean,
I just find it to be an odd practice. And don't get me wrong, the lowest budget film I think I worked on was a $10,000 budget, shot on digital. The biggest project I worked on was a $500,000 film that was shot on actual 35 millimeter, So I mean, I loved working on low budget. I felt like I learned a lot. I felt like we did a lot of cool stuff that like Herschell says, that the studios won't do. Sometimes you have to step outside the line if you want to make any kind of impact, and it's just weird to me. You look at something like You look at something like, what was that, Project Greenlight? They did the one film that did really well, and then they pulled it because, you know, people were questionable. You look at great things like when Showtime had the Masters of Horror series. And by the way, I just wanted to say, it's not kissing ass. Herschell, why you were never asked to shoot an episode for the Masters of Horror series is unconscionable. But
that's very kind of you.
Agreed.
Besides that point,
but see, what you're doing is underscoring the way I work, which is outside the mainstream. And I wasn't the least bit surprised to be bypassed on that.
You know, they cried about, you know, they trumpeted being, we're going to be this thing, it'll be uncensored, it's on late night, it's on pay cable, and then, you know, the great director Takashi Miike does something that involves fetuses, and the whole series falls apart. You know, as a filmmaker, I know you know where I'm going with this. Can you explain the hypocrisy of the fans screaming, "We want it, we want more, we want more," and then when we give them more, why all of a sudden our genre in particular becomes the social pariah?
It's because really, on a critical level, that is, with critics involved, we are not worthy, in their opinion. And I've faced this many, many times. They want to know who's in this. Who cares? The cast is of no consequence. They want to know, for example, where we're going to have a multiple opening. Well, I've had that, for example, with She-Devils on Wheels, open in 32 theaters in Chicago. But so what? Even then, the reviews treated us as though we were not quite bright, relatives third or fourth cousin down. It's an attitudinal thing. We look at it from a different point of view altogether. We want anybody who comes to look at that movie, whether it's in the theater or on their TV set or on a handheld little i5, whatever, we want them to feel entertained. And that is, entertainment is not in the minds of people who make these judgments over there. Another reason why I was out of that industry for so long.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
and you know,
really go ahead, James.
Well, you look at, you know, what was the, you know, widely considered to be the top horror film of 2014, The Babadook.
Right.
You know, I mean, the studios don't understand horror any better, you know, well, they just don't anymore. You know, you have these large films with name actors who, you know, it's basically the same story. It's a retelling of the Amityville Horror, or it's this, that. And, of course, they do make their money. I mean, that's how the studios finance a lot of their projects, is through comedy and horror. But the best films are coming out of the indies. And, you know, and you know, why they don't take notice of that, I have no idea. I honestly don't.
Well, I've always said, you know, the difference was when a lot of stuff, they tried to go PG-13, you know. I know what you did last summer, you know, fun film, but, you know, going into a movie, you know, where Jessica Love Hewitt's the main character, you know she's not going to die. You know, when you watched, you know, any of Herschell's movies, when you watched, you know, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, Halloween, Friday the 13th, you didn't know any, you know, Friday the 13th had Kevin Bacon in it, you know, Halloween had Jamie Lee Curtis in it, but when you watched them, they were, you know, for lack of a better term, they were nobodies. You didn't know if they were going to live or die. And that's what made the film. Today, when you have all these name actors, well, you know, if Tom Cruise is going to be in Friday the 13th, bet your ass Tom Cruise is not going to die. It takes away from the suspension of disbelief when you're watching the film. And I'm glad that Herschell, you know, as a filmmaker, gets that. You know, yes, it's nice sometimes to have star power, but at the same time, you know, you want to build that doubt in your audience. You know, so I'm glad to see that, you know, you guys have gone that route with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have some very good actors and actresses in this movie.
Right.
You know, and I hark back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where you've got young Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger in their first roles.
Yep.
I would rather have a young person who's talented be in one of our productions and have success down the road than hire somebody who's going to bring me a huge bill and questionable draw power.
And they also show up with hairdressers, and they want a trailer with their name on the side of it, and they have to have a specific diet, and they're not team players. If you were on our set, you would see what I mean here. Everybody pitched in, no matter what it was. Whether we need an extra, okay, I'll go over there. We need to pick these cable ups. Okay, I'll pick the cable up. It's truly a different world for us, and we love it.
We've only got a few minutes left, and I want you guys to give out, all the social media info, websites, and things like that. But, one of the last things I wanted to ask you, Herschell, was, you talk about having to go to you had to go to the meetings, to set up where your film was playing and things like that. And now with the conventions, because the convention circuit's going to eat this film up, everyone's going to want it. Can you talk about, how much trying to get distribution and how the fans are, how much that has changed and yet how much that has stayed the same over the years?
Well, it's a tough question to answer because on a demographic level, we had our niche. We still have our niche. I'm very pleased that the niche has expanded so that a lot more people understand the kind of movies that we're talking about and the one we're asking them to go to see. The difference that exists, and it still exists, as you point out, to some extent, is one of not having a recognizable name to hang it on. So the attitude differs altogether, and we're not unhappy with that circumstance. We have our position, and whether we are asked to show up at some major enterprise here, we have little horror film festivals. Both Jim and I could go to one every other week. There are so many of them around now. And to those, yes, we are invited. And to those, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Universal and Fox and Paramount, they are not invited. This is our world, and we love it.
How about for you, James? What are your thoughts on going out to the convention circuit?
We're working out a deal with one of the majors. We don't want to overtax ourselves and overexpose ourselves. We want it to be more like an event. So through Diabolique, we are working out an agreement with one of the majors who does 3 or 4 across the country, and we'll do an exclusive deal on that. So yeah, I mean, we love the fans. I mean, that's what I am. I'm a horror fan. That's how I got into this. I mean, that's first and foremost. I'm a fan of the genre. And
well, before I let you guys go, please give out any websites, social media, anything like that you want to get out there to promote so that the fans can go check it out.
Well, www.bloodmania.ca, Canada.ca. We're on Twitter @Bloodmania. We have a Facebook page. Just look up Herschell Gordon Lewis's Bloodmania. And we're on Instagram. And we're pretty much everywhere. Greg, Michael. He's got us everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So, Google us.
Herschell,
and you'll
what about
find,
you?
Beg pardon?
Do you have anywhere you want to send anyone?
The distribution is in Jim's hands. Here's a case where I know someone is better at this than I am. And I would get in there and probably argue with somebody. And Jim knows how to soothe them. So in distribution, he is the king, and I'm going to be the jack of diamonds.
Well, look, personally, I want to say thank you so much for both being on. James, thank you so much with everything with Diabolique and setting everything up with Greg. Thank you for everything you've given the Horror Society. And, you're always welcome. If you guys have news, just let me know. And Horror Society would be happy to get it up there. Herschell, from a
we certainly appreciate it.
It's not a problem.
Really.
Herschell, from a personal standpoint, I'm sure you meet a lot of fans. People want autographs and pictures and things like that. I just want to say first and foremost, as a journalist, as a fan, thank you for all the years of great quality entertainment, in my opinion, that you've given me. You created a section of our genre that a lot of people have become fans of, and because of your work, a lot of what we see in effects and everything are possible today. So thank you so much for being on the show. You know that you're always welcome. If you ever have news, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to put it out there. But I wish you guys all the success in the world with Bloodmania, and thank you so much for being on the show.
A pleasure, believe me.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
No problem, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was our feature interview with the Godfather of Gore himself, Herschell Gordon Lewis, and producer James Saito of the upcoming Diabolique film Bloodmania. Make sure to head on over to HorrorSociety.com to see the world-exclusive footage from one of the segments from that. You can also check out the series I've had going on all week talking about some of Herschell's older films, including Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, A Taste of Blood, The Wizard of Gore, The Gruesome Twosome, and The Gore Gore Girls. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to do our second Scream Factory digital dismemberment Blu-ray spotlight of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, the Collector's Edition. But before that, we're going to play another song from our friends at Wormreich and our friends at Metal Blade. First off, from Metal Blade, we're going to hear something brand new from the band Ensign Ferrum. From the CD One Man Army, the song is Acts of Judgment.
You will live forever.
welcome back. You just heard some Warm Reich. From the name of the song is Feeding the Ouroboros, upcoming, which will be out on an upcoming split with the band Cult of Azazel. So hopefully we'll start to get a little bit more music from that label. I'm kind of really digging what I'm hearing there. And, of course, Wormreich is always welcome to come on to the show. I'd love to hear more of their music. I really enjoyed what I heard earlier today. In a second, we're going to get to our second digital dismemberment DVD spotlight for the evening, Scream Factory's Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions Collector's Edition. But before we get into all of that, we're going to talk about Living Dead magazine for a minute, since the Dead Man does write for Living Dead magazine as well. You can still get your copy of issue number 6, which is our Rob Zombie issue. So make sure to celebrate the new year with one of the most influential names in horror, Rob Zombie. Through his film, music, and popular brand, Rob Zombie and the talent he surrounds himself with have helped influence and design our whole horror culture and what it truly means to live a horror lifestyle. His passion and unique take on horror is why this magazine exists, so we are honored to have an entire issue celebrating his work, his talents to friends who have made his vision a reality, the huge names who have influenced Rob Zombie, and this new age of zombies. This issue features interviews with Rob Zombie himself by Deanna Utella, Bela Lugosi Jr., Sid Haig, Bill Moseley. I got that one. That one was a lot of fun. The Walking Dead cast, and it's wrapped up into an explosive package with artwork by the legendary Alex Horley. So make sure to head over to Living Dead magazine to pick up your copy of that. And just a little bit more info. Last week I mentioned the Horror Meets Paranormal Convention in 2014. That's going to be November 13th through 15th at the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, Oregon. Got a little bit more info off of the website and from Indiana. So to give you a little bit more info on that, the Living Dead Convention was created in association with Living Dead magazine. It was conceived by Living Dead staff members Deanna Utella and James R. Beach, who both had a desire to bring the first all-horror convention to Portland, Oregon. The pair was joined by local paranormal investigator and Living Dead associates Chris Siverson, who would be adding a huge paranormal element to the convention as well, including ghost tours and paranormal celebrities and panels. And that is how Living Dead's Horror Meets Paranormal Convention came to be. A perfect mix of everything a horror and paranormal fan would love, all mixed into one glorious weekend. More than just a film convention, Living Dead Con stays true to the brand's spirit of welcoming and promoting everyone in the horror and paranormal culture and community, from writers to musicians and artists to actors. This is the first of many Living Dead conventions that will take place annually in Portland, Oregon. And right off the bat, we are bringing to Portland some of the coolest celebrity appearances, live bands, professionally led ghost tours, horror burlesque, oddities, nonstop film screenings, celebrity-led workshops, personalized VIP parties, and panels from authors, actors, directors, and paranormal experts. We are extremely proud to be able to hold this convention at the biggest and best convention center in Oregon, the Oregon Convention Center, right in the heart of Portland. With hundreds of attendees coming from all over the Northwest and beyond, OCC's location and size is the ideal place to offer VIP treatment to celebrities and attendees alike. The addition of after parties and live acts at Portland's very own horror bar, the Lovecraft Bar, celebrity-led ghost tours in our haunted Shanghai tunnels, and live bands and screenings at some local theaters will also give fans, vendors, and celebrities a chance to explore Portland and enjoy a convention like no other. We will be slowly announcing our celebrity guests, acts, panels, screenings, and workshops to give you something to look forward to all year long until the convention. We, of course, want you shivering with anticipation. A website is currently being built to purchase tickets, download vendor forms, book your hotel stay, and to find information on becoming a sponsor. The website unveiling will be announced via Facebook and Twitter, so stay tuned at their Facebook at Living Dead Convention and Twitter at Living Dead Con. You have less than a year to make it to the first convention of this type in Portland and to make it the most impressive convention around. So join us in November 2015 and show everyone why we really are the weirdest city around. So make sure to check all of that out. Head on over to livingdeadmagazine.com to get more info. But now it is time, once again, for some digital dismemberment.
Digital dismemberment.
And in our second digital dismemberment spotlight for the evening, we're going to be covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions Collector's Edition. In the world where magic is real, death is the ultimate illusion. From best-selling author and celebrated director Clive Barker comes a supernatural thriller that rips apart the boundaries between sanity and madness, and between the art of illusion and the terrifying forces of magic. Written and directed by Clive Barker, and based on his popular short story The Last Illusion, which was from Books of Blood, Volume 6, the 1995 cult film classic Lord of Illusion stars Scott Bakula, Kevin J. O'Connor, Famke Janssen, and Daniel von Bargen. It was released on December 16th of 2014, and it is a 2-disc Blu-ray set that was released. This highly anticipated cut contains both the theatrical cut and the all-new high-definition transfer of the director's cut of the movie, with all kinds of insightful bonus content, as well as a collectible cover featuring newly rendered retro-style artwork, a reversible cover wrap with original theatrical key art as well. A must-have for horror enthusiasts, movie collectors, and fans of Clive Barker, Lord of Illusion's Collector's Edition Blu-ray is priced to own at $29.93. And if you order it from shoutfactory.com, you get an exclusive 18x24 poster featuring the newly commissioned artwork while supplies last. To give you a little bit of background information, Scott Bakula portrays Harry D'Amour, a private detective visiting Los Angeles on a routine investigation. Harry gets more than he bargains for when he encounters Philip Swan, a performer whose amazing illusions captivate the world. But are they really illusions? Harry isn't so sure as he is thrust into a nightmare of murder, deception, and terrifying assaults from the dark beyond. Famke Janssen and Daniel von Bargen also star in this cult film classic. You know, it was really fun to go back and watch this and watch Clive's cut of it. There are a few minor differences. But one of the things, of course, that comes out at you, this is one of the first films to really use CGI. So when you watch the film, you have to remember you're watching CGI at its genesis. So with the more forgiving eye, the film still stands up, but you can definitely see where the CG is. The film really stands on its own merit. It's fantastic storytelling. I thought great job in the casting as well. I really enjoyed Scott Bakula in this. What I really liked, and this may sound funny because this film certainly has its fair share of gore and blood in it. But when you think Clive Barker, you think Hellraiser, you think Midnight Meat Train, you think, Candyman. There are a lot of things. Rawhide Rex. There are a lot of things you think of with Clive Barker, and this one stands out a little bit more. I really like where Clive went, trying to go with more of the detective film noir type look with the film, and the debate over whether magic or illusion, which is more powerful. The depths that all of them go to. It's Nyx, the cult leader coming back from the dead. Swan, kind of being the good guy and using his illusions. Faking his death to try and save his wife, Dorothea. And as you turn out through the film, there's a history between her and Nyx. She was the little girl that was saved from sacrifice at the beginning. It's really interesting to see where this goes. D'Amour has been a character in Clive Barker's books several times. And the rumor is when Pinhead is finally killed off, in the literal sense, D'Amour is supposed to be involved in that somehow. So D'Amour seems to find himself in situations dealing with the supernatural. In fact, that's shown quite extensively with a newspaper that's sitting on his desk about an exorcism that he had been to. There's a ton of great special features on this disc. I highly recommend checking all of them out. I really, really enjoyed the Gathering of Magic featurette, the original behind-the-scenes footage. Then there was the unseen rare footage, the Illusions of Reality. There were the vintage interviews and unseen on-set footage providing a fascinating look into the making of the film. You really got to see a lot of things in there that you just don't get to see on a lot of behind the scenes, and it's really nice. Again, Scream Factory does a fantastic job of getting all this together. There's a few deleted scenes with Clive Barker's commentary. The interview with storyboard artist Martin Mercer, I found that really interesting because for those of you that don't know, Clive Barker is also an artist, and he really talks about how they storyboarded out everything, and Clive tried to do everything he could to get the look and the feel, especially with, the film noir part of it. Scott Bakula's commentary on working, on the film, I think it would have really been an interesting set to be on and watch. They showed a little bit of the choreography for the sarcophagus scene in the beginning, and how Clive gives his opinion on how, things should look when the camera flies by and things like that. Really, really a well put together. This one gets, it's hard to argue. It gets a 10 out of 10, as a disc overall. I love the artwork. The behind the scenes were highly informative. We've got the HD director's cut version of the film. There's really not too much more you can ask for. I would give the film about a 7 out of 10. It's not my favorite Clive Barker film, but it is certainly one that I would sit down and share with a friend. You should be able to head on over to shoutandscreamfactory.com and pick up a copy straight from them. You should also be able to go onto Amazon.com and order there, or head to your big box retailer and pick up a copy. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been another amazing show. I want to say thank you so much to our friends at Scream Factory, Tom Chen, Sarah DeBrune, and crew, for sending along our copies of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions and The Raven from the Vincent Price Collection II. Thank you to my friends out at Metal Blade for sending along our great music. And thank you to the band Wormreich for sending along their songs, Feeding the Ouroboros and Devotion's Final War. It's been a great show, and thank you again to the Godfather of Gore, Herschell Gordon Lewis, and producer James Saito. Make sure to check out their upcoming film Bloodmania. Head over to horrorsociety.com and see the exclusive footage. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Dead Man signing off, telling you all to rest in peace.